Hey gentlemen, it's actually a fairly nice Saturday afternoon here in Austin, Texas, and we're here once again in the garage with our SV650, and we've got another small little job to do this afternoon. I decided I might save the hard ones for later, because I wanted to have an easy Saturday afternoon. And the job we're going to do today is to install new turn signals, because for some inexplicable reason the previous owner removed them and didn't replace them. The good news is, the previous owner was kind enough to just unplug the old turn signals. And so we'll be able to use these little adapters to adapt aftermarket turn signals with the bullet style, really simple 1-pin connectors to our Suzuki plastic little tiny connectors here like this. The reason that these connectors are so small is that they have to fit through the bolt hole for the turn signal itself. In this case, because we're using the bullet style in between, that's less necessary. But nevertheless, that's what we're going to do. So, using this one here as an example, we've got our turn signal and its wiring. We've got the bullet connectors. And we've got the Suzuki connector. I'm going to use that to plug it into the bike's wiring harness, which I've checked is just fine. It doesn't require any repairs. All we've got to do, more or less this afternoon, is find a place to mount these, which shouldn't be that difficult. We may have to make a bracket, and then plug in the wiring harnesses and neaten up the wires. So let's get after it. Before we get started, let's take a look at what we have to work with here at the back of the bike. We're going to start at the back because it's easier to access, and I think this will be a little more straightforward than the front. You can see that this has been trimmed, and in fact this wasn't even really attached when I bought it, and it looks like it's been cut out. Maybe it was originally like this. That looks about right. This plastic fender piece goes all the way up that way, and we're going to have to work some more on it later. But it looks like this has been cut off with the intent to stick this piece inside here like this. And then there's a hole that's been drilled right here that it looks like either a bolt or maybe the turn signal stock, the threaded shank on there, is meant to go through there and mount the turn signal kind of like this. And that would make a certain amount of sense. So you can sort of see what the previous owner was going for, but whoever did this did a pretty crummy job of it. And the bolt holes don't line up very well. This one's not so bad, but the one on the left doesn't line up at all. So I think what we may need to do, if we want to try to salvage this solution, which I'm inclined to at least try, because that would be awfully tidy if we could just get this right here and get all the wiring inside there. That doesn't look so bad. If we want to try to salvage this, we're going to need to drill out these holes a little bit larger and get them more closely aligned. Luckily, this isn't a structural part or anything that has to be, held together super tightly. We just need the turn signal to stick in there and not fall out. So we can afford to drill the plastic a little more, and it's not like we're going to ruin it by doing that. So I think that may be what we try first, before we resort to having to make bracketry or anything. Because bracketry is a much harder thing to make than simply finishing the hole a little better. So yeah, let me grab a drill here and see if we can't clean these holes up. All right, so we've got a 3/8 drill bit, which seems to be roughly the size of this. So we'll just stick it in here. There we go. Now, let's see if we can get our turn signal in there. So we'll fish the wiring through first. Under other circumstances, I might insist on doing a more neat job of this. There we go. Fits like a glove, man. I think that'll work. That was easy enough. So, now we need to align and do the other side. And then we can take this out and clean it because this license plate bracket is pretty filthy. So we drill our other side here. There we go. Now, we can take this thing out And we're gonna go clean this because it's got tons of dirt in there, and no sense building the dirt into the bike. And then we can come and do final assembly on the back, move on to the front. All right, we're up here at the front of the bike while we let the license plate bracket thing dry. We're gonna go ahead and start disassembling this. You can see up here, I've already attached one of the turn signals, which I did the other day while I was trying to figure out how I was gonna do this. And I think we'll use what I believe to be the original turn signal brackets, which are these little guys right here, to mount them. But all the wiring has to go inside this headlight thing. If you look at the back of this, can you see here? Yeah, you can see that. There's this plastic black housing here, and the light only takes up maybe half of the volume of it. And the rest of this inside here is all the connectors for the electronics up in the front of the bike. Ordinarily, there would probably be something for the instrument cluster, and also the connectors for the turn signals and various things, and the wiring that goes down to the speed sensor and so forth. So I believe that most of the wiring we need to access in order to hook up our turn signals is tucked away inside here. So as you can see in there, all sorts of wiring. So we're going to disconnect our headlight and set it aside. All right. When you remove this, you want to be careful not to mess with this screw. This is the side-to-side adjustment of the headlight relative to the forks, and you don't need to mess with that, this guy, to get this out of there. The two screws are, you can see the holes here and right here. So we set our headlight aside. And then we dig our wiring out of here. Let's see what we got. Yeah. All right then. Actually, we are in luck, it looks like. Let me grab a side cutter and cut this. All right, as luck would have it, these may actually even be better than the ones we got today. As luck would have it, our previous owner has been good enough to leave us adapters, like I mentioned before, to hook our turn signals up to. This one's still got remains of a wire stuck in it. So does this one. But we've got our wiring right here, and we shouldn't have to do a whole lot other than plug our turn signals into these guys after fishing the wiring through these little holes in the back. So that's a left. Usually the left is black. Oh, we need to pull the remains of that out. Okay, so push that back that way. Let's see if we can, yeah, here we go, okay. So, the only real obstacle for this guy is that we've got the remains of a bullet connector still stuck in this pin, and we need to get it out of there before we can plug in our new one. So, it seems like the simplest thing would be to just grab a pair of pliers and see if we can yank that out. And if not, we may have to get a little creative and pull it out this way, and then kind of bend the connector back to where we want it. But it looks like maybe the reason this got stuck in there is that it was inserted too far. You can see this has a pair of little detents on it. And it looks like whoever did this pushed it in too far, and these little tabs are now sticking the bullet in there pretty good, and it doesn't want to come out. But I think we can get around that one way or another. So we've got our two new wires here for our new turn signal. Okay, well this is troubling. This just fell off of something in here, and I should probably investigate what that is before I get too far away from plugging this in. All right, well, one problem at a time. The way to do this may be to bend the ears of this connector out a little bit. See if we can't liberate this bit. So now I think I've got that far enough. There we go. One bullet connector, freshly empty. Okay, so black, white to black. Worst thing about these bullet connectors is that they've got these little condom things that like don't want to slide back. It's a little loose. Maybe we can tighten it up with the pliers. Still a little loose. Okay, let's pull it out. This is the one that I had to pull the remains of the pin out of, I think. So it's understandably a little not tight enough. Adjust it in there with the pliers. Now we can stick it back together. There. We'll try that. It's still a little bit loose, but I don't think it's coming apart. It may just not make the best electrical connection. But we'll see. Doesn't seem like it needs to be a terribly huge load. All right, so now if we turn on our ignition and we turn on our turn signal, there we go. Currently we've only got one signal attached on this circuit, so that's why it's blinking fast. That's a good sign. Our wiring is working and went together pretty easy. So now we can do the other side. Here we are back at the back of the bike. Knock the last of the dirt out of there if I can. Okay, so we stick our license plate brackety thing in there like that. Take one of our turn signals here, fish it through, push the wires in through the hole. And then we need to reach up inside here and grab them and help pull them through. There we go. Okay, I have to play with it a little bit to get it to go in there. There's one. Do the same thing on the other side. This one may need some more persuasion with the drill, actually. Yep. For this side, we're going to run the drill in and out of that hole one more time, because I'm not satisfied. Now we fish our wires in there. So we've got our wires in there. We just need to kind of, there we go, persuade it into place. So now we've got our turn signals in the holes. We need to get the hardware, lock washer and a nut, onto them and cinched down so that they'll not just fall out. Put a washer over the wires, put a nut over the wires. I think we're going to want to remove this tail light temporarily so we can get access to the inside of these turn signal stocks. While we have the tail light out, we may take the opportunity to clean it and also replace one of the bulbs, which appears to be burned out. There's our tail light. All right, with our turn signals reasonably well mounted, we can get on with the process of hooking up all the wiring and then reinstall our brake light, which you can see is missing from right here. So, first thing I think I want to do is take the igniter, I assume that's what this is, and mount it here. There we go. We got that secured now. I get the distinct impression that this is not actually where this goes. It looks like it's been trimmed and kind of shoehorned in there, and I suspect it lives maybe down in this area. But for some reason it's been transplanted up here. Interesting. Anyway, so this wiring harness is the lights for the tail. The license plate light, which we're going to cover in a separate video, because I couldn't find one by today that I liked. And we've got our two turn signal wires and the tail light. So, for the turn signals, grab our wires. This one is the right turn signal. Take our little bullet ends, and we go black to black. Push the bullet terminals together. There we go. Slide the little foreskin thing over it. Pull back the foreskin on this one. Plug our terminals together. Put the foreskin back. And now, let's try the black. Pretty sure black is to the right. So there's one all hooked up. Get our wires for the other side. Get our adapter here. Foreskin back. Bullet in. Foreskin forward. Foreskin back. Bullets together. Foreskin forward. Plug in the cable into the harness. Alright, now if we turn on our ignition and we do the left turn signal, you can see that we've got a left turn signal. And if we do over here, we've got a right turn signal. I've cleaned the wiring, or the taillight off. And now we can stick it back in here. Fish the cable. Can we go down through that side? Okay. There we go. Okay. Kind of gotta get it inside the fairing. Maybe it's not meant to be reassembled in this order. Now, why is it not? Alright, now we can hook up our wires. There. So let's make sure that all of our circuits still work. So we've got a little bit of, there I'm doing the brake. Good. Alright. So turn signal job complete. And now it's just a matter of maybe zip tying these into some nice little bundles here. We should maybe leave some slack so we can pull it out and work on it. Bundle up our wires as best we put a zip tie around them. We got one, got a second here. It's raining pretty good now. Not like a devastating Texas afternoon rain, but an actual like waters things and makes life better rain. There, now we've got our turn signal wiring bundled up nicely. And this one's, there's not much to be done with that, so we'll trim the little ears off the zip ties. And then tuck them back inside the fairing there, where I guess they live. There we go. I'm leaving this one here outstanding for the brake light. Not the brake light, the license plate light. And we're going to cover that in another video because I need to go find a part.
Alright gents, there we go, working turn signals. This was one of the last really critical things we needed to do to the SV650 before we can ride it. One of the other things being we need to do the license plate light, which I think we'll probably do in the next one. We also need to address the seat mounting tab where it rubs on the shock and move the battery back just a hair so that it doesn't rub on that shock reservoir. We'll do that pretty soon as well. So, if you came here needing to learn something, I hope you learned it. If you came here hoping to be entertained, I hope you were entertained. And I will see you in the next one.